Welcome to our first episode of A Musical Vision for Paradise Lost. My name is Barney, and I'm a classical composer and the founder and director of Barneyjmusic. In this series, I'm going to share with you musical ideas that are just flowing through my head at the moment in preparation for a massive musical work in which I'm going to set the entirety of Paradise Lost by John Milton from the first word all the way to the last word of book 12. Let me play. Wow, I hope you enjoyed that music as much as I did. So that is an excerpt from what I'm creating for Paradise Lost, which of course is a book. It's a poem split into 12 books called Paradise Lost by John Milton, from a middle age or kind of dark ages, we'd say, poet, beautiful, beautiful poetry. And this will be set to music. This particular passage, I'm still figuring out what this is. So part of the beauty, if you join me on this journey, is that I'm just like one step ahead of you. This music is just coming to me, and I'm just figuring out what is it even saying. But we'll talk about what this is saying a little bit later. Paradise Lost is going to be an oratorio, okay? Now, I know people get scared when they hear terms they're unfamiliar with. I understand the general public is not yet familiar with an oratorio, so I'm going to explain it for you. So imagine an opera, with costume, staging, maybe even dancers, who knows, but costume, staging, scenery, lighting, all that. But then imagine that the subject matter was something religious or something philosophical, noble, cerebral, something where it felt inappropriate to have all that acting and dancing and it just felt inappropriate. Okay, then what a composer might do is take a story but instead create an oratorio. An example of an oratorio would be Bach. He wrote many oratorios, but some of the most famous ones actually go by other names, and they're called the Passions. So the Passions are, a recount or a telling of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. And Bach did the St. Matthew Passion and the St. John Passion. We don't really have the other passions, unfortunately. But in the Passions, there's the evangelical man, okay, like the pastor, who's kind of telling the story, okay, but singing it, of course. Then you have the chorus that functions as the crowd or shows the reaction, shows the society, all that. Jesus has a role, Pontius Pilate. I don't know if Mary has a role. But nevertheless, this story is sung with characters, but they're singing on stage in concert attire. They are not dressed up as these characters. Another example of an oratorio would be a work that is still, ruminating in my head, but I'm sure you'll see in the coming decade. And that's the setting of the plays by Jean Racine to music. So Jean Racine was a great, great writer in France, and he maybe we can think of as the Shakespeare of France. I know it's a little bit cheap to say it like that, but think of him as like that big, like that groundbreaking. And what I love about his plays is that it's rhymed. So it's these one line and then the second line rhymes, and a new line and then the second line rhymes. I really love that. And if I was to set that to an opera, I'd certainly have to make cuts, and that effect would be lost. So the plays of Jean Racine are another example of an oratorio where I would preserve everything and we would focus more on a choral-like setting so that the audience can appreciate the poetry. Okay, what is the story of Paradise Lost? Very good question. So Paradise Lost, I think a lot of people will just naturally be able to get into because it's based on a very, very famous story. You don't have to come from the Christian or Jewish faith to resonate with the story. It's a story that talks about why we suffer. That's really what the story is about, is how we left paradise on earth and have arrived at where we are, where we feel so much passion, ups and downs. And this, of course, comes from the Bible, the story of Adam and Eve. There is also a practical reason that I'm setting Paradise Lost as an oratorio and not as an opera, and that has to do with the lines. Okay, so typically with an opera, you take a story and you cut out things, right? You condense it. It would be the same if you do a movie, right? You look at a story, you can't keep everything, right? You make cuts. But since I've already stated I will not be making cuts, I'm sitting every single line, every single word of music from start to finish. Wish me luck. Therefore, I need a medium that can sustain that. And the medium that would most easily sustain it would, of course, be an oratorio, where they wouldn't have to be memorized. Instead, I could have musicians reading from their sheet music. What you just heard was an excerpt from Help Us on the Way for orchestra. It's in 5 movements, or Adventures for Orchestra, and it's my first orchestral work, and we're currently preparing it for the market, meaning we are professionally proofreading it, setting everything, making it all beautiful so that we can sell the musical score, and of course that will eventually lead to a live performance, because what you heard, of course, was just on a piano, and this is going to be set for orchestra. We will also have lessons and interactional videos where we will show the general public how to read a musical score. So don't forget to look out for that. Help Us on the Way for orchestra. What will the stage look like? What will it look like? What will it be like when you come to see Paradise Lost set to music? Very good question. What I'm seeing in my head is on the stage, we need a very deep stage, very long stage, very simple, could be wooden, nothing fancy, okay? We're going to have one side is going to be a chorus, a full chorus. On the other side, we have another full chorus. So it's kind of like antiphonal singing. There's going to be a lot of like one group sings and the other responds, or they'll sing together. I also see, of course, soloists, because someone needs to play Gabriel, the angel, someone needs to play God. We'll have soloists to represent the specific lines. And then I kind of am hearing brass, oddly enough. Generally the default at Barneyjmusic is to think about orchestra, but I'm kind of hearing a lot of brass, like just great sections of antiphonal brass, and just think of like the glory of the Renaissance period and that shiny, like noble brass. I'm hearing a beautiful concert hall where those noble brass can really shine, and like the sound just goes from one end to the other and it never stops. A financial reason that I'm setting Paradise Lost to be an oratorio and not an opera, though this was not the first idea, okay? the first idea was just I was hearing. But a financial benefit of doing oratorio is that opera in general is super, super expensive. Okay, I'm sure this project will be expensive as well. But again, this is luxury art. But what makes it expensive especially is that everyone has to be off book. Everyone has to be memorized. So in Paradise Lost, if they have sheet music and they're reading from sheet music, now they still have to communicate. They can't just be like this. But that will certainly cut down significantly on rehearsal time. Why even set Paradise Lost to music? Why not just have a narrator? Well, first of all, I'm a musician, so I'm going to be thinking in terms of music. But also, I think there is a benefit to having Paradise Lost set to music, which is that I think a lot of modern audiences just don't have the patience to read Paradise Lost. I think, unfortunately, because of our addiction to social media, a lot of people aren't even capable of understanding Paradise Lost. I myself have to read it over and over and over again. And there are certain things that I want to do in the music that you're going to hear shortly that will help the message of Paradise Lost be shared more directly. Why do I feel a personal responsibility to set Paradise Lost to music? When I think of some of my favorite writers, like Proust, Flaubert, okay, they loved music, and it shows in their writing that they kind of wish they could have expressed themselves through music, because there's all these references to music. So, for example, Proust talks about Ventule, okay? I can't pronounce it in French, but it's this very beautiful sonata that doesn't actually exist, but kind of reminds him of a lover, okay? And then Flaubert wrote Salambo, which is just bristling with opportunity for music every second, just the sound. He was obsessed with sound. And I'm setting Salambo to be an opera ballet. Why is a composer most fit to set Paradise Lost and bring it to the masses? Well, when I read Paradise Lost, something that really sticks out is the punctuation. It's something very, very important. So, for example, there's multiple different punctuation, but we have the commas and the periods, okay? And you will see one sentence that lasts an entire page or half a page, very long sentence, and then it ends with a period, okay? So musically, I would be able to make the distinction. I think a lot of readers, unfortunately, when they read Paradise Lost, they just read it like it's a novel. And though it is kind of a novel, it's also a poem. And so the pauses are quite important. Can I cite an example of the difference between a period and a comma? Okay, let me get out my book. So, for example, in Book 7 of Paradise Lost, John Milton has, I forget who's speaking, it's one of the angels, talking about how God built Earth. And so he talks about day 1, day 2, day 3. So those are, of course, separated by periods. So he's talking about the 5th day, and then he gets to the 6th. Listen carefully. The waters thus with fish replenished, and the air with fowl. Evening and morn solemnize the 5th day. The 6th and the creation last rose. Okay. So did you hear that very deliberate pause in between the end of talking about the 5th day and the beginning of the 6th day? How would I set that to music? Okay. Good question. But listen, I am still reading Paradise Lost, so don't you dare go that far, okay? You're not allowed to ask this question just yet, okay? But as a token of my appreciation for asking inquisitive questions, I'm going to play the opening again. So what was I thinking when I was playing that? Well, I was like, oh my God, my hands don't want to get cramped. No, but, well, that's a mystery to me. Like, I'm still reading Paradise Lost for the first time. Now, I do reread a lot, so I have to reread the whole chapter because I didn't fully understand. Okay, fine. And I expect I'm going to read it many, many times, okay? So that music that you heard is the first music I've heard from Paradise Lost. And I don't really know what it means. I don't know how it fits into Paradise Lost. I have some ideas. But so you see what I'm saying? That this kind of journey is a journey for us both. What is my timeline for Paradise Lost? Very good question. Well, we already talked about Help Is on the Way for orchestra. It's my first orchestral work. We're preparing the musical score for consumption, okay, for production. So that is our first priority. We also have Attila. It's my first opera. I need to finish the libretto. So the libretto is like the script, okay? It's like the script of the opera that's going to be sung. That needs to be finished by end of August. So I got to get moving on that. And I also have my opera ballet called Salembo. So I have a lot I'm working on, but I am really, really passionate about Paradise Lost. And I'm currently gauging public interest in this project. So if you are interested to see more, please somehow make that clear. I'm now going to play music that's never been heard before. I've never heard it before. So I'm a little bit nervous because I know I'm going to make mistakes. But there's a line in Paradise Lost, I think it's in the 10th book, that really, really just, like, it's like fire on my eyes. It's just amazing. And basically it's after Satan has successfully gotten Eve to eat from the forbidden apple, then of course Adam, and then they're punished. So Satan is watching from earth and says, aha, I see, they've suffered. And I kind of feel a little bit bad for Satan in this story, but don't get me in trouble. And so John Milton, the writer, the poet, I forget the entire line, but the end is so beautiful. He talks about Satan returning to the mouth of hell. So let's listen to music that I've never touched before. I've never played it before. I just totally improvise. I have no idea what's going to happen. Please wish me luck. Okay, so that's the music apparently for book 12, or what is it, book 10, wherever they say mouth of hell. That's I never heard that before. I didn't know that's what I was feeling. I think I put a little bit into the next part because it was a little bit too resolved. But did you feel like when we got to mouth of hell, I don't know, was it all mouth of hell? Is that all the music the whole time? So we were going to have a chorus that's going to be singing mouth of hell. Imagine that, the mouth of, I don't even know. I don't want to sing this yet, but like, imagine them singing the mouth of hell. And we have all this crazy music going on, this turbulence. a musical vision for Paradise Lost. My name is Barney. I will see you very soon.